Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Cryptic Conversations. I'm your host, Tunez from the Crypt, and we have another very special episode in store today. Today's guest is a woman named Nicole Burron. Be sure to stick around to the end because we have a free gift for you guys, and it's a free gift to help you with your psychic abilities. It's a free psychic guide, so be sure to stick around to the end to learn how to gain access to that. So nonetheless, today's guest is Nicole Burron, a gifted psychic medium with a focus on helping people with their shadow work, spirit readings, psychic support, and more. She is an extraordinary individual who gracefully traverses the realms between our earthly existence and the spirit realm. Nicole serves as a bridge, guiding individuals on their transformative path towards healing and authentic living. Currently residing in Portland, Oregon, she was born on a significant day known as Death Day in Mayan astrology. Nicole carries the galactic tone of 7, symbolizing her role as a bridge between the spirit world and our physical reality. This connection fuels her passion for self-reflection and personal growth, igniting a lifelong pursuit of self-discovery. With compassion and wisdom, she guides individuals on their transformative journeys, helping them embrace their true selves and navigate the complexities of life. Join us on this episode as we delve into Nicole's remarkable abilities, her unique perspectives, and her profound insights into the realms of spirituality and personal transformation. Prepare to be inspired as Nicole shares her wisdom, experiences, and a glimpse into the fascinating intersections between our world and the spirit realm. Welcome, Nicole Burron.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you for being here. So we can dive right into it. Tell me about your early life. When did you know you had gifts? How did you discover your psychic abilities? And when did you first realize that you had a connection to the spirit realm?
Yeah, so when I was little, my first memory of the first spirit I saw was my grandma Lisa. I was probably around 5 or 6 when she passed, and we were at her funeral, and my dad was really upset.
Mm.
And I was like, well, what's wrong? I didn't really understand why we were there,
Mm-hmm.
and like try to explain to me that she had passed. And I was like, well, she's right there. Like, what are you talking about? And I will say that is the clearest. I don't see full body apparitions like that anymore. But like
Mm-hmm.
when I was little, I saw them a lot more, but my grandma was the first one that I really saw. And so I was like, oh, but I didn't think anything of it. But when you look back at home movies of me, I'm always
Oh
like
yeah.
with nothing, even when
Oh,
I was
okay.
a younger kid, like 6, 7, all this stuff, I'm like talking to nothing and laughing at nothing. Like there's nothing there. Um,
Mm.
and then my mom was a sensitive, but I don't think she had a good grasp of how to use it. We lived in a lot of haunted homes or highly activity, like energetic homes. And I would just see and hear things and feel things, but I did not understand technically what it was. And I
Yeah.
didn't know not everyone experienced it.
Oh
Um,
wow.
yeah, so it was really noisy is what I like to say as a child. And so I shut it down pretty, I want to say like maybe around 9, 10. And then I didn't really gear it back up. I was always interested in
Mm-hmm.
paranormal after that, but I was pretty good at like trying to figure out how to just like completely shut it down. And then when I got pregnant with my son, it was like the floodgates open. I couldn't tune it out anymore. So in between like the accepting of it, I was just like obsessed with the paranormal, obsessed with metaphysical. Like I was so into it. And so I just really see it as like kind of, I consider my guides dialed it down for me so I could gain knowledge and figure out how to work with it until I
Yeah.
was ready. Yeah.
Yeah, I find it interesting. It seems like a lot of times kids are like very sensitive when they're growing up, and kids have these, profound abilities. And, as they get older, sometimes they kind of just like brush those, feelings or powers to the side. And yeah, for some reason, kids, you can tell when like, I'm wondering for you, did you have like imaginary friends growing up and stuff like that?
Yeah, but they were like real people.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like a bunny or anything. It was
Yeah.
like humans.
Yeah. Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So you talked about it for a second there. So can you tell us more about your early experiences growing up in haunted houses and how they influenced your spiritual journey and the discovery of your gifts?
Yeah. So my mom, so I believe I have a lot of theories on when it comes to hauntings and what causes hauntings and the different types of hauntings and paranormal activity. But I grew up in the desert. I grew up in Las Vegas.
Mm.
And the energy there, I believe every area of the world and climate and all that can amplify energy or
Oh
tone it
yeah.
down into different things. So the desert has an interesting amplification, I would say.
Mm.
Um, and we don't get a ton of rain. So rain, I find, helps clear energy in a lot of ways. I think that's why
Oh.
I'm so drawn to Oregon and Portland. And
Oh.
it's not by an ocean, right? So it can get stagnant there energetically, I find a lot. Um, and my mom, she had a lot of trauma and she was a sensitive. And I find when that happens and you don't really know how to navigate it, you can become a magnet for certain energies and spirits and things like that. So we always lived in like homes with weird activity. In Vegas, it's a lot of track homes, right? Like they're newer developments,
Yeah.
but we lived in one house that everyone that visited was like, that house is haunted. It turned non-believers into believers. And I think there was a lot of energy there in the sense of some spirit energy. I think there was what I call energetic stains. So it's like trauma or highly emotionally charged energy like stains the
Yeah.
spaces.
Uh-huh.
Like the home just kind of absorbs it, right? Because no one was clearing the energy, and the people that had a track record of people living in there that had substance abuse and things like
Oh
that.
yeah.
And that it just, creates clutter, energetic clutter in that way.
Yeah.
So that home really was like a learning space for me to kind of figure out like, this is a spirit energy, this is something else, this is my mom's trauma projections manifesting into like poltergeist activity, this
Oh
is this.
wow.
It was so much different stuff like that. It was just this hub cluster of it. So that really started my interest in the sense of like, well, what is a haunting? What is a poltergeist? What is this? What is that? What are entities? What does that
Mm-hmm.
even mean? So that
Yeah.
was like my starting point with that.
Wow. So you said there was a lot of poltergeist activity?
Yeah, I really take it as my mom's like it was my mom's, there's a movie and I can't remember the name of it. I think it's just called like A Haunting in like 18 something, but essentially I think there was a president that actually stayed in this family's house. I can't remember which president. It was obviously one of our earliest presidents,
Yeah.
but pretty much the daughter was being sexually abused by the father, and
Mm.
it caused poltergeist activity. And so
Oh
there was
wow.
stuff moving in the house, but it's because the energy she was creating essentially created like almost a poltergeist. So things were moving, like it was so emotionally charged that it was somehow just creating that whirlwind in the house. And I really think that's what was happening in the house with my mom with the poltergeist activity, because
Mm-hmm.
just my own feeling, I was like, this isn't, like, I kind of knew it was coming from her, but I didn't know and how and why that was happening.
Oh
But
wow.
she was at some pretty intense low points at that time in her life. So when I like look back on it, I'm like, oh, this makes more sense to me.
Yeah.
And it was different than the other spirit activity.
Yeah. Yeah, that kind of reminds me of a story. I'm not sure if you're familiar with any comedians or if you know Duncan Trussell, but
Mhm.
I like a story that he talks about. The comedy store in Los Angeles, the Hollywood area, is known to be a very haunted venue. And there's a story that he talks about that I like where he says, he was at the comedy store and he was like sitting on this one like staircase or something, and he watched these people like walked and they stopped like 10 feet in front of him, and he watched them, and it was a couple or something, and they started arguing, right? They started arguing, and he was like, oh, that's weird. And then they walk away, they go away. And then like 5 or 10 minutes later, he watches another set of people walk to that exact point, that same exact spot, and they start arguing. And he was like, whoa, there's something here, like with the energy, like in that specific spot or in that room, you know what I mean? Like it happened twice back to back, and I definitely agree with you. I can see how energy can be stuck or cause people to act a certain way. I've been in some houses. There's another story that I have too, where I was at a house and we were partying there, we were drinking there, and all of us friends, we were acting different. Like we were, I don't know, there was like a heightened sense of anxiety in the room, and everyone was acting different or a little more angry, and I could see it and I could feel it, and yeah, so there's definitely something there to that. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, so I'd like to ask you, so you mentioned in 2014, or also saw it on your website. What inspired you to fully embrace your gifts in 2014 and embark on a deep dive into healing through practices like breath work and meditation and your abilities?
Mm-hmm. I had really bad anxiety. I was getting
Mm.
kind of to a breaking point. I had really bad anxiety and I was having panic attacks where at one point my now husband, but boyfriend at the time, like was almost called 911
Oh,
um,
wow.
because I was just having such an intense panic attack. And so that started my breath work thing. And I would say breath work is what kind of catalyst all of that. Before that, I was starting to get into like crystals and tarot and things like that. But breath work really shifted a lot for me. And my breath work instructor was actually, I would say like a sensitive, like had like some psychic abilities and
Mm.
like brought up some stuff. And I was like, oh, and it was the first time that I had encountered someone that had psychic abilities where it felt really genuine, if that makes
Mm.
sense. So I feel like that kind of allowed me to drop in my vulnerability with it as well.
Mm. Mm.
Because he was just so grounded and he was just so safe and it wasn't like showy, you know what I mean? It wasn't
Yeah.
like a caricature of a psychic, like he was just like a very grounded guy. And so that got my breath work. And then I got into the healing work, especially I knew I had to really, really face it head on when I got pregnant with my son. Like I was like, I just like knew I was like, I got to figure out the stuff that I knew I had unhealthy patterns. I knew I had trauma I had to work through. I knew I had parts of
Mm.
that I had really rejected and pressed. And I was like, I don't want to bring my child into this world without starting really intentionally starting this journey.
Mm.
So essentially he inspired me to do
Wow.
it.
Okay. Yeah, that's beautiful. That's beautiful that you had that self-awareness to really, work on yourself and heal yourself because as you mentioned, because your child would grow up and you'd end up passing on some of that stuff to him. So that's beautiful that you recognize that and worked on it. In addition to breathwork and meditation, was there any other healing modalities that you were participating in?
So mostly let's say breath work, meditation, nervous system. Once I like figured out how the nervous system worked, that was really interesting to me because it
Uh-huh.
also helped me figure out my gifts a little bit more. It helped me like be more embodied. And I think sometimes people think like psychics and mediums like leave their body, but actually the best thing is to be in your body
Mm.
for that work. And yeah, so that was kind of the modalities that started that. And then I went on like a 3-day intensive subconscious journeying session, like a one-on-one session with a healing practitioner. And that, just seeing the power of our subconscious and the things that came up when I was on the table, it was just wild. In like the best way. There was like certain confirmation things of like talking about like a past life I had with dates that and events that like I was able to confirm actually existed in locations that existed, but I had no prior knowledge of, and no
Yeah.
interest before then.
Yeah.
It wasn't like a cool thing where it was like I lived in Egypt. It was just like a
Yeah.
very from life.
Uh-huh.
But um, but that made it seem more like real to me too. I was like, oh, like it's not always like the movies or whatever.
Yeah.
And so yeah, just like going into the shadow work aspect. I've always been into psychology. And
Mm.
so seeing the bridges of those and everything just kind of melding together. And so then I just started seeing other healers for like acupuncture, embodiment work,
Mm.
and things like that. So I do all the things. I'm always trying new things too, because I love that area and that world.
Yeah. Yeah. What about have you ever done Reiki?
I don't love it as much. I've
Mm.
had it, I got certified in it, I guess, or whatever
Hmm.
they do. And I practiced it for a little bit. It just didn't resonate with me a whole
Yeah.
lot. Um, some people really love it. Just wasn't my jam.
Mm, okay.
Mm.
So what methods do you use to communicate with spirits and how do you interpret the messages?
So I either do card readings, but I really like
Mm.
Oracle or Tarot. I found myself getting in my own head around the structure of Tarot, and it didn't feel as freeing and like intuitive to me.
Hmm.
So I got really into Oracle cards. I have two decks that I work with pretty regularly, but I have a very large library of them. And so I do readings with card readings, or I just do straight mediumship readings, like evidential mediumship readings with crossed over loved ones. And sometimes I do animal medicine readings because I really love animal spirit medicine.
Hmm.
Um, and so those all look kind of different of how I go about doing them or the information of how I receive it. But um, the best way I would say my strongest, if we're going for the clairs, my strongest clairs are clairvoyance and claircognizance. So just
Okay.
clear seeing and clear knowing. I,
Mm.
I don't I don't hear is like the hearing that I get isn't like an auditory, it's just like information that I somehow knew. And I'm like, oh, okay. So that's like very clear cognites. It's just like clear knowing.
Uh-huh.
I sometimes get sensations in my body, but it's usually more related to the physical body. Not so much like I'm feeling this emotion. So I don't get
Mhm.
like this is the emotion with it. It kind of feels more like information being sent to me. But every crossed over loved one is different, and I find that similar to how they were in this lifetime is kind of how they communicate. So if someone was kind of maybe more logic,
Uh-huh.
I can't remember what side of the brain they say that is, but more like logic brain, like it feels like clear information. If someone was like an artist, I tend to see like a lot of, or creative, I tend to get a lot of visuals. So I
Ah.
kind of receive information kind of also how I think how they receive information or shared information. So
Mm.
the clairs kind of get lit up more than the others. Yeah, so every spirit's just kind of different in how they communicate.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. My first guest on this podcast, she was also a psychic and medium. Her name is Sunlight Oracle. And I enjoy watching her stuff on Instagram lately. She's been doing that. She's on this project lately where it's like all about spirit portraiture. She gets
Mm.
these faces in her mind, like of these spirits, their face, and she starts drawing them. And then she's done like hundreds at this point, and it's crazy.
Yeah, that's that. I've one time I had like I'll get like they're like certain features, but one time I got this, it was really interesting. This made me kind of, I haven't found enough research on it, but just like the theory of consciousness per se.
Uh-huh.
Um, I was in the shower and all of a sudden this spirit came through and I saw his face so clearly. He told me exactly how to find him online, essentially. And he wasn't passed though, but he was at the time had been committed to an institution.
Oh wow.
So, but his face was exactly like when I looked up the person's name and I got his name, and I don't always get names. I got his name really clearly. Um, I was like, but he hadn't passed. So I kind of wondered if he had maybe been put on medication that was disconnecting him consciously in some way, and
Oh
he was
wow.
some thread of consciousness. And that one always blew my mind because it wasn't a
Yeah.
con or anything like that. I have
Yeah.
no reason for me. I don't know anyone that knows this man, but I was able to find him online. He was like, look for me with this information. I was like, okay. And I was like, oh my God, what is this? So
Wow.
I don't know. I light a candle for him and I just hope that whatever happens. I don't know, but it really blew my mind around the theory of like consciousness and how it works.
How we're all connected in some way. Yeah, that's crazy. Okay. And so I saw it on your website too. So how has your Celtic and Native ancestral heritage influenced and shaped your spiritual practice? Could you share some insights into the spiritual elements you incorporate into your work, if any?
Yeah, so I kind of blend the two. I really feel like the part of me that really connects with the animal medicine is really tied to my native side. That just feels
Mm.
like their gifts and that side of the guide's gifts to me.
Hmm.
Um, and especially because I have a pet snake and I work
Uh,
really with what I call serpent medicine. And it turns out that I have a niece, so I have uh, a half biological sister who has a daughter, and I didn't grow up with her or anything like that. But my niece also has a pet snake and is like
mm,
really serpent and snake. So I feel like it's like an ancestral thing, like it's in our DNA to work with snake and thing like that. So I find that my serpent medicine and animal medicine really comes through with my native side, my native heritage, and a
mm,
lot of that practice I feel like is also finding ways to reconnect with the land, especially here in the United States, um,
mm,
and reestablish that. The Celtic side, I feel a lot really connected to a lot of the, I guess you would say like the more like pagan holidays, and also a lot of the deities over on that side. I feel really a lot of connection to the Celtic deities.
mm,
They come through in a lot of different ways. And I would say like that side feels more like, I would say, I guess like the witchy the witchy side. It's a lot more like coven feeling. It's a lot more like I guess like sisterhood. Like native side, for some reason, I like feel like it's more family oriented. I
Hmm.
don't explain it. Like it feels more like my family roots, healing family lineage on that side.
Oh,
While
got
Celtic
it. Oh,
it feels like finding my kindred spirit when it comes to like spiritual practices. So native side feels a lot more like in this lifetime healing family. The other side feels more like spiritual friendships and things like that, and how they, I guess, how they guide me and how I feel
yeah.
like they see me in places.
Nice. Okay. Do you know what tribe you're from on the native side?
I don't know what tribe. I know
Mm,
that they're down in like the more like, I guess, like Baja Central, like southwestern, like border
yeah.
area of what we consider now United States, separate from
Yeah.
Mexico. I mean, I know the tribe. I'm gonna butcher trying to pronounce it. I
Uh,
know they're known for running. Um, and I'm gonna butcher even trying to pronounce it, because whenever I do, I just feel like my
just
being
go for
raised
it.
just whitewashed, because I was raised with my white side of the family. But yeah, that's been hard too, because a lot of the ancestry, besides the direct family, right? Like a lot of the records
Yeah.
exist. It just doesn't exist the same way, and it's not as accessible
Yeah,
as
that's what I was gonna say. Yeah, it's like it's sometimes it's hard to even know what tribe you're from. The records are wiped, and I'm part native too, and I have no idea what I am. I'm half Mexican, half Mexican, a quarter German, a quarter English. But in that Mexican part of me,
yeah.
there's native blood there. I did the ancestry DNA, and that was like a large chunk of mine. But I have no idea what tribe my lineage traces back to. I'd love to find out. Um,
Yeah, it's hard.
yeah,
They just don't have the records, because
yeah,
they'd have to prove that they
yeah.
were.
Okay, so you're passionate about creating understanding and healthy relationships around often overlooked topics such as spiritual gifts, shadow work, emotions, and grief. Can you elaborate on why these topics are important and how they contribute to personal growth and transformation?
Yeah, so we're full spectrum beings, and I really, no matter what you want to call everyone's purpose or journey, I really believe we're all here to have a human experience, and we're all connected spiritually, and we're all connected to spirit in some way.
Yeah.
And so when you and I believe everyone has those gifts and abilities in some different way, to some degree, in their own unique way, and however they channel it. Like, you're a musician, right? Like you do music, like that's your medium, is that. Like, I
Hmm.
know plenty of artists and musicians that sometimes they just feel like they're receiving information from some other being or
Oh
realm. And
yeah.
in my opinion, I'm like, you're a medium too, just in a different way that I am,
Oh
so
wow. Yeah.
we all have these gifts, we're all connected. So I think it's so I feel like empowering, and it just feels like a big hug to me in a lot of ways, when you explore your spirituality and
Oh
you
yeah.
explore your spiritual gifts and abilities. And then shadow work, we're all raised, maybe not all, but most people I've come in contact with in this point, those immediate environments that were brought into our household, our schools, if you go to churches, whatever it is, you sometimes repress certain parts of you, or you experience trauma, whether that's like big trauma or little trauma, where you shut off part of that spectrum, that full spectrum of you, right? Like you kind of
Hmm.
push it away, because you
Yeah.
want, it's in our survival, it's in our tribal nature to want to be accepted by community, because it literally, like, it's in our DNA. If we don't, we're
Yeah.
going to starve. It sounds
Oh yeah.
dramatic, but it's
Yeah.
just how it is. So it's like, once you start to, you're able to explore those and integrate that into your life and feel safe to do that. It's just like, it's like releasing weight that you were carrying that you didn't need to carry. And it's just so freeing and expansive. And it just, for me, it's changed the way that I view the world and have viewed life and have just lived life. So I think it's so beautiful. And grief is
Mm,
that too. Grief
yeah.
is a full spectrum experience for us, but it's messy and it's not easily digestible. So
Yeah.
we can tend to shy away from it. But grief is, a reminder of how fully we love. And so I
Hmm.
think it's important for us to explore all that, to not say we're not whole if we don't, but it's just, I
Yeah.
think, creates more nourishment for us.
Okay. So can you talk a little bit more, like tell the listeners who may not know exactly what shadow work is and how it's used in the process of healing?
So shadow work is kind of like you're going to find different people that specialize in different parts of shadow work. So there's, I think, like a couple aspects. One is there is dealing with the trauma you had when you were first growing up. That's that you've pushed aside and you've been like, I don't want to deal with it. It's not important or whatever it is. There is the shadow work of the parts of you that you've shut away. So like the parts of you that maybe you thought were wrong or told were wrong or were told is not acceptable to exist, or you felt wasn't safe to exist
Mm,
in the external world. There's the emotions that we have that we shut down. That's part of shadow work. So like grief, anger, frustration. A lot of it is like stuff that we have like a moral attachment to in a lot of ways, or that we have a lot of fear of because either we don't understand it or we think it's bad or we think it's scary or whatever it is. So you're going to find different, like when you explore shadow work, you're going to find lots of different little things of what people kind of touch on with it. But essentially, yeah, it's like all that stuff you try to shove in a closet or pretend doesn't exist
yeah.
about you. And then
Yeah.
you're like, you know what, I'm gonna unpack that.
All right. So I'm going to ask a personal question. You don't have to answer it. I mean, but can you share with us a personal experience or breakthrough moment that you've had in your own shadow work journey that has had a profound impact on your life and how you approach your work with others?
Yeah. So I like to use the example of like when it comes to healing and I guess like the healing aspect of it with dealing with trauma and how I was raised. My husband and I was not a healthy person to be within a relationship with because I had severe abandonment wounds and I was
Mm,
always afraid he was going to leave me. He had never given me reason to believe that, but
hmm
it started in childhood and I was always afraid that the people that I love are going to leave me. And
hmm
so I would self-sabotage to try and essentially manifest my own destiny and to keep the narrative alive that people would leave me. I would try and like push him to the point where he, most people probably would have left me, or I would like threaten to break up or leave him first so that
mm,
he wouldn't leave me. So I could just keep this very unhealthy pattern alive and going. And
mm,
it was hard to break. It was really hard. I had slip ups. I mean, this is not like it happened in 3 months and I'm not here to discourage people, but this was years. This took years to really
hmm
work through that.
Wow, thank you for your vulnerability and sharing that. I can see how I can see how there's people out there who live that way. So how does this uh, how do you implement that in your approach with your work with your clients?
So it kind of depends, like let's say if we're going to do, let's say someone came to me and they want to start their mediumship journey or their psychic journey, whatever. They're like, hey, I'm really, or they want to look at their natal chart to look at these different parts of themselves, whatever avenue draws them in.
Hmm
Um, if we're doing some shadow work, I always kind of include it anyways, because I find it comes up. But if they have trust issues from childhood, they're going to have trust issues more than likely with their mediumship or psychic abilities, either that they can't trust themselves or they can't trust spirit, right? It's going to show up in one lens or the other. So if someone came to me, they're like, and this is a common thing, like, I feel like I'm getting messages, but I feel like I can't trust exactly what's coming to me. I would be like, well, let's talk about maybe where this trust wound started in your
mm,
life so we
wow.
can work through that and work forward. So it really can show up in all different areas of life.
Okay. So in addition to that, how do you guide individuals through the process of exploring and integrating their shadow aspects? And what are some key insights or transformations you've witnessed in your clients as a result of engaging in their shadow work?
So for my personal offerings, I started this during COVID and I did multiple rounds of something I created called the Root Shadow Work Journey, which was like a community. It first started as 6 week, and then every round I would tweak it and add things and whatnot. And it ended up being in 8 weeks. And I think I ended up holding 6 rounds of it. I
Mm,
think about 200 people altogether. Um, and so that was a lot of, calls and then like worksheets, and we would do some embodiment and guided meditation and things like that. But we touch on like root shadow issues. So this is a lot of like the foundation of shadow work, which, most of the students too that start in round 1 would come to round 8, or I would send them the updated materials, because you can just revisit it. It's just like a tool and an exercise and a practice in a lot of ways. I also do subconscious journeying sessions with snake medicine called sacred serpent sessions, where someone comes and everyone's session's different, but we start it and end it the same way. But you come, and it's usually people that are drawn to this medicine of snake are looking for a transformation in their life, or they know that they're approaching something in their life. And it's kind of like what I consider a subconscious energetic shedding per se. So you might be shedding some narratives or just some energy that you're holding on to. Everyone's different. But most people just, it's not right away. It's a little more subtle. But yeah, most people just feel a lot more, I would say, in healthy control of themselves. They have a lot more conscious awareness of their reactions, their triggers. They start to integrate parts of them that they had pushed away. So like their playful part, or maybe like, honor their anger, or, honor the part of them that, is more expressive and speaks up more. And so everyone's so different, but I've watched people's kind of journey with it, and they look so much lighter, is the best way I can say it. They just seem so much lighter and freer. Like it's so beautiful to watch, and just kind of like spy on them a little bit from like the web world.
Yeah. Okay, that's beautiful. Yeah. So what about, can you give like a specific example of a certain client that you worked with? Maybe it was a reading or one of your coaching sessions that you did for someone that was particularly impactful or meaningful?
Yeah, I'm trying to think if there's like one that really, really stands out to me. That I'm trying to think of like a client that left a testimonial.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just going to think about, there was a client, I don't know if it's the most trans, because of what I witnessed, but they sent me a card, just thanking me. And it wasn't like a huge thing. Like I see them online, and they definitely seem lighter and happier. But the fact that they spent time out of their day to send me a card just thanking me for that. I mean, I'm not doing anything. I'm just providing the tools. And I just want to make that they have to integrate, they have to do the work. I just provide the tools, and I show them how to use it, but they do the work. Is, she has the fact that she has the conscious awareness of the impact that it made on her life, just really shows me that she's like able to see where she is now and where she was before, and how much has shifted. Just shows me someone that has a lot of awareness. So it's not like her life has changed so, dramatically in the way we sense, but she seems so much more at peace, and her creativity seems to be blossoming through. I think she's working on a book right now.
Nice.
Everything just seems more peaceful in her auric field. Like she feels just, her energy feels amazing.
Okay. Yeah, that's good. So what advice would you give to someone who is seeking guidance from a psychic medium for the first time?
So if they're going to do a reading with the psychic medium, I would say take your time to vet someone out, in the sense of, I think recommendations are great, but you need to go someone that you can be vulnerable with and that you can trust. I know it's a stranger, but you'll know, like visit the websites, get a vibe for them. I would say don't go in your heightened grief state, because you might have unhealthy expectations. That's another thing I always tell clients, like in a reading, we're going to brace the experience. We're going to release expectations. I do evidential readings. So we do get confirming evidential specific things where they know the spirit that I'm talking about. It's not just like, there's a male who's just really lovely. It's not like that. It's like very specific, but make sure you can trust them, because I've had people come to me for a reading and they seem so, I don't know if they just had a lot of bad readings before, or they're just, their energy feels like a brick wall. And every medium's different, but for me, that does impact my energy, because it's not just, they're as much of a part of it as I am. They're the ones that the spirit knows. I don't know these spirits. These spirits don't know me. They know that person. They know the client and sitter. So, really make sure that you can show up with your energy open and being vulnerable, and be able to trust your psychic or medium, I think is great. Most ethical psychic mediums I know have really good boundaries. They'll let you ask questions if you email them. They're not doing the work out of like a financial desperation or anything like that.
Yeah.
So I would say if you're skeptical or you have questions, you want clarity, email them. Every ethical psychic medium is more than happy to answer your questions. If you're looking to work with a psychic or medium that specializes in healing or shadow work, it's kind of the same thing. You need to be able to be vulnerable. You need to be able to be willing to do the work. We can only provide you with so much. You actually have to show up. But I would just
Hmm.
say, do your homework, make sure you can be vulnerable, and make sure you can trust, and, let yourself be curious and open to surprises.
Nice. Yeah, that's great advice. So I've noticed you have quite a bit of different services that you offer. Talk a little bit about all of your services and what they are.
So right now, because my little one's about to go, so I'm a seasonal worker, so people know. So my offerings kind of change with the season. So my little one's about to go on summer break. So right now I'm focused on remote oracle card readings and natal chart readings. And those
Mm.
are recorded once you give the information to me so I can send it to you. And then once fall picks back up, I'll pick back up on the mediumship readings and be doing more shadow work stuff during fall and winter. And then if you're in Portland, you can come in for a psychic reading with aura photography into my office.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, so those are so they kind of change every season because of my little one and my
Yeah.
schedule, and just the energy and the vibe too. I find
Yeah.
that, I bounce off of that.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, I guess kind of closing it out, what is your goal for your work moving forward, and how can we empower people to become their best versions?
My goal is always to help and be of service and empower people and remind people that, we do the best healing and supportive work in community. You know, um, Being alone, I think, allows us time to go inward, but when we get help from other people, we have other support. I think it's super healing in and of itself. Moving forward, my goals are or to bring some more, I guess, like lightness to shadow and some more silliness
Mm.
and play to the work. Spirituality to me is not dull. Like, it's a very vibrant field to be in. And so I'm really trying to pivot a lot of my work to reflect out that vibrancy of playfulness and just being curious and not taking it so seriously. Like, I know we can be respectful and we can be really intentional with our healing journey with spirituality, but we're also meant to have fun and be light with it. And so I really want to integrate more of that into the world, into the spiritual community.
I love it. Okay. And so how can we empower people to become their best versions? Could you like leave a closing statement of love and healing to the listeners?
I think the best way we can empower one another is simply to be present with them and to remove judgment for one another. Um, Most times when people, right, are going through something, they really just need space holding, and they just need to feel like you see them and witness them. So I think, yeah, being able to witness one another without judgment and just being really present with people and setting your own stuff aside, if we can do more of that during the day, I just think it would just radiate out, into the world.
I love it. All right. Well, I want to thank you, Nicole. I want to thank you for your time. I want to thank the listeners for sticking around to the end. So, as I mentioned, Nicole has a free guide that will show you how to break negative cycles, reclaim your superpowers, bring healing to your wounds, and manifest your desires in your external world by tapping into your hidden psychic energy reading abilities when you sign up to join her email list. So, Nicole, go ahead and plug your information, and I'll also have it in the description of the video.
Yeah, if you go to my website, OH-SO Magical Life, so Oh So Magical Life, but a dash between the O and the So, you will see the free guide down at the bottom. You can just sign up through there and it will be sent to your inbox right away. Check your spam in case, though.
Awesome. All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.